those were moments to reassure that I was answering my call, regardless of having the understanding from my peers or not.
Welcome to the Future in Flight podcast, coming to you from a hangar somewhere near the flight line. I'm your host, Shawn Staerker, and in this episode, we're celebrating Hispanic heritage in aviation. We lead off with a compelling story of a 15-year-old girl lying on a rooftop in Mexico, staring up at the night sky while her family thinks she's crazy for wanting to fly planes. That girl is Adriana Barragan, and today she's the CEO of an aviation app that's revolutionizing how pilots learn to fly. We'll dive deep into her remarkable journey from dreaming on rooftops to building the future of flight training. But that's not all. We're also taking you on a cultural flight around the world to explore some of the most amazing Hispanic aviation celebrations on the planet. From mariachi bands playing on tarmacs in Mexico to empanada vendors at Chilean air shows, you'll discover how Latino communities are transforming aviation culture in the most beautiful ways possible. And in our Trailblazers of the Sky segment, we're honoring the Latino pioneers who didn't just dream about flying, they made it happen when the world told them it was impossible. From the first person to cross the Alps in 1910 to modern-day Mars mission engineers, these stories will absolutely blow your mind. So strap in, make sure all doors and windows are latched. We're about to take off on a journey that celebrates courage, innovation, and the relentless pursuit of flight. Let's add takeoff power. Picture this. You're 15 years old, lying on your roof in Mexico, staring up at the night sky. Your family thinks you're crazy for wanting to fly planes. So you escape to your rooftop, watching storms build in the distance, following airplane trails overhead, dreaming of a life your parents can't understand. That was Adriana Barragan's reality. Today, she's the CEO of an aviation app that's changing how pilots learn to fly. But getting there meant turning every weakness into a weapon, every fear into fuel. Let's go back to the moment when aviation became Adriana's calling.
I remember feeling all these butterflies in my stomach, just like, letting the excitement bubble from all the way up. Being able to explain how something that seemed extraordinary from the outside into something that I could understand, coming down to physics.
That's it. When mystery becomes knowledge. When the impossible thing you've been watching from the ground actually follows rules you can learn.
And the second moment was while I was reading a book by Richard Bach. He was very good at describing all the things that you can find in flying. And I knew that was a lifestyle that I wanted.
Richard Bach, Jonathan Livingston Seagull, and illusions. Philosophy mixed with flying. Spirituality wrapped in the language of lift and thrust. For a teenager fascinated by flight physics, this must have felt like discovering a secret language. Adriana knew what she wanted, but aviation speaks English, and technical aviation English was a different challenge entirely.
Well, the biggest challenge for me was language, because while I was able to understand English quite well, it was very difficult for me to talk, to be understood.
If you can't communicate clearly with air traffic control, you can't fly safely. Period.
I used to spend, back in the day, about an hour just to understand one page, because I will have to pick up my dictionary to look up at every single term that I could not understand.
1 hour. 1 page. Most people would quit. But Adriana turned this brutal process into her secret weapon.
What I didn't realize was the magical aspect of that, because I was building so much knowledge by looking at things at a granular level.
Her method was ingenious. She watched every aviation movie ever made with subtitles. She became fluent in airplane speak before regular conversation. That roof Adriana speaks about wasn't just teenage rebellion. It was something way more powerful. When she tried sharing her aviation dreams with her family, the conversation shut down.
When I had the courage to share my dreams with them, it was something that I couldn't really share with them on the dining table. They had fears about, what is this domain? What is this industry? Are you going to be able to be successful? Isn't it male dominated? Like, good luck. They really they were not willing to talk about it.
So she found her own space.
I remember escaping to go fly, and a few other times just to jump on my roof and just watch. At that time, I used to follow some of the bunch of asteroids or things that are worth looking at. Those were moments to reassure that I was answering my call, regardless of having the understanding from my peers or not.
Every time she climbed up there, she was affirming that this dream was real, regardless of whether anyone else understood. By 17, Adriana earned her private pilot's license and had a clear vision: aerospace engineering and flight test.
I wanted to be part of developing, testing, and improving new aircraft. I knew engineering was going to be important. Of course, flying was the main, my main intention. If you look at biographies of test pilots and anyone who does flying for research or development or as part of innovation, they are professional pilots and they are engineers in most cases, because they are going to have to translate what systems are doing back to engineering.
She landed at Gulfstream, living the dream, helping to engineer cutting-edge jets. But something was missing.
I could see through my experience a lot of people losing purpose. A lot of my local airports were losing people. The people seemed to be chasing money and titles, and they were no longer experiencing that aspect of flying.
So she built Fly ORKA. Think Instagram for pilots. You can track flights, replay them in 3D, and message pilots worldwide. Flying lessons cost around $150 an hour. If you can learn more between flights, you need fewer hours in the airplane.
That's how athletes train. That's how champions train.
Adriana's philosophy is one of empowerment without limitations.
What defines you is what do you do with every moment that is given to you. You may find that along your life you may have multiple careers. Are you going to allow yourself to flourish, or are you going to put limits on you?
From a teenager on a rooftop in Mexico to CEO of her own company, when you're willing to spend an hour understanding one page, when you turn your biggest weakness into your greatest strength, well, there's no telling how high you might fly. Coming up next, we check out some amazing Hispanic aviation celebrations around the world. Here's something every pilot knows. Finding sunglasses that actually work with your headset is nearly impossible. That's why I'm super excited to tell you about Flight Sunglasses, our newest show supporter. Flight gets it. They're made by pilots for pilots using wafer-thin carbon fiber, the same material we trust to build our aircraft. No more broken headset seals, no more pressure points, just crystal clear vision and all-day comfort, whether you're in the cockpit or on the ground. Head over to flight.aero and join their mailing list for $20 off your first pair. That's FLYTE.aero. Sunglasses designed for pilots, worn by everyone. Let me set the scene for you. You're walking through an aviation festival, the smell of fresh tamales mixing with jet fuel in the air. A mariachi band is playing near the runway while overhead fighter jets perform aerobatics. This isn't some weird fever dream. This is what happens when Hispanic culture meets the world of flight. And trust me, it's absolutely incredible. Now on The Future in Flight, we're taking you on a journey to 4 amazing Hispanic aviation celebrations that prove one thing. When it comes to honoring the skies, Latino communities know how to throw a party. Our first stop, Mexico, where the Feria Aeronáutica Internacional turns airports into cultural festivals. Imagine trying to focus on cutting-edge drone technology while mariachi music is playing in the background. It's like someone took Coachella and crashed it into an air show in the best possible way. This isn't just about showing off cool planes, though the aerobatics are pretty awesome. It's about celebrating Mexican aviation pioneers, people who looked up at the sky and said, yeah, we belong up there too. And while you're learning about Mexico's contributions to aerospace innovation, you can grab some mole from a food truck. Because why should learning be boring when it can be delicious? What I love about this festival is how it refuses to separate culture from aviation. It's saying, hey, our heritage and our dreams of flight, they go together. Now let's head south to Chile, where the mountains literally touch the clouds and aviation gets real interesting real fast. The FIA, that's the Feria Internacional de Aire, happens every 2 years in Santiago, and it's basically Chile saying, you think flying is hard? Try doing it next to the Andes. Picture this. You've got military jets doing formations against a backdrop of snow-capped peaks, while kids are trying out flight simulators and learning why high-altitude flying is basically aviation on hard mode. And of course, there are empanada vendors, because let's be real, everything is better with empanadas. This festival celebrates something crucial, Hispanic resilience. Flying in extreme terrains isn't just a technical challenge. It's about communities that refuse to let geography limit their dreams. It connects back to legends like Jorge Chávez, a Peruvian pilot who literally risked everything to cross the Alps in 1910. That's the kind of barrier-breaking spirit we're talking about. Speaking of Jorge Chávez, let's talk about how Peru honors this absolute legend. Every September 23rd, that's his birthday, Lima hosts the Jorge Chávez International Aviation Festival. And here's why this guy matters. In 1910, when aviation was basically held together with hope and spare parts, Chávez became the first person to fly across the Alps. The festival doesn't just remember him with boring speeches, though. We're talking air races, vintage plane fly-ins, hot air balloon launches, and yes, ceviche. Because apparently everything in Peru comes with amazing seafood, and I'm not complaining. Our final stop brings us home to the U.S., where the Latino Pilots Association is doing something incredible during Hispanic Heritage Month. They're not just throwing parties, though the Latin music playlist and taco trucks are definitely a vibe. They're building the future of aviation, one pilot at a time. These events connect historical trailblazers to today's innovators. Picture walking through an expo where you can meet Latina astronauts, hear about scholarship opportunities, and maybe grab an arepa from a food truck. It's mentorship disguised as a festival, and it's changing lives. What strikes me about all these celebrations is how they refuse to choose between honoring the past and building on the future. They're saying, yes, we celebrate our pioneers, and we're creating a space for the next generation. That's powerful stuff. Here's what I want you to remember. Aviation isn't just about the technology or the physics, though those are pretty cool. It's about communities that look up at the sky and refuse to accept limits. These Hispanic aviation celebrations aren't just parties. They're wonderful displays of skill and potential. Whether it's mariachi music on the tarmac in Mexico, empanadas at 10,000 feet in Chile, or scholarship announcements over Latin beats in Orlando, these festivals are proof that when Hispanic communities claim their space in aviation, they don't just participate, they transform it. Next time you see a plane overhead, remember, that pilot might have been inspired by a festival where culture and flight collided in the most beautiful way possible. Up next, we continue our celebration of Hispanic aviation with our Trailblazers of the Sky segment. Welcome into Trailblazers of the Skies. This month, we're talking about Latino pioneers who didn't just dream about flying, they made it happen, often when the world told them it was impossible. It's 1910, and the Alps, those massive snow-capped mountains between France and Italy, are considered an impassable barrier for aircraft. Most pilots won't even attempt it. But there's this 23-year-old Peruvian guy named Jorge Chávez who looks at those mountains and thinks, I can do that. On September 19, 1910, Jorge climbs into his flimsy-looking Blériot monoplane. We're talking about a machine that's basically fabric stretched over a wooden frame with an engine that sounds like an angry lawnmower. For 51 heart-pounding minutes, he battles freezing temperatures and dangerous air currents, becoming the first person ever to fly across the Alps. Here's the thing, though. Jorge's story doesn't have a Hollywood ending. He crashes on landing and dies 4 days later from his injuries. But his flight? It changed everything. It proved that with enough courage and skill, humans could conquer any terrain. Jorge literally opened up the skies. Now let's fast forward to World War I. Meet Felix Rigau Carrera from Puerto Rico. This guy was building model airplanes as a kid and studying mechanical engineering when most people had never even seen a real aircraft. When the war breaks out, Felix becomes the first Hispanic fighter pilot in the U.S. Marines. After the war, Felix does something pretty amazing. He becomes Puerto Rico's first air mailman. Picture him flying between remote mountain villages, delivering letters that would have taken days to reach by land. The locals nicknamed him El Águila de Sabana Grande, the eagle from Sabana Grande. He wasn't just delivering mail. He was connecting communities and proving that aviation could serve everyone, not just the military. Let's talk about breaking barriers in modern aviation. Meet Olga Custodio, born in San Juan, Puerto Rico. In 1973, when some of your parents weren't even born yet, she became the first Latina to complete U.S. Air Force pilot training. Think about that for a second. We're talking about the 1970s, when being a woman in aviation was already rare, and being a Latina, almost unheard of. But Olga had this motto, querer es poder, where there's a will, there's a way. After 24 years in the Air Force, Olga didn't retire to a rocking chair. She became one of the first Latina commercial pilots for American Airlines, flying international routes and logging over 11,000 flight hours. That's like flying around the Earth 440 times. And speaking of breaking barriers, let's talk about Marisol Chalas. Born in the Dominican Republic, she moved to Massachusetts as a teenager and joined the Army National Guard while still in high school. By 2001, she became the first Latina National Guard Black Hawk pilot. Here's a stat that'll blow your mind. Out of over 3,000 Black Hawk pilots, only 120 are women. And Marisol was blazing that trail for Latinas everywhere. But wait, we're not done yet. Let's rocket into space for a moment. It's 1980, and a Cuban pilot named Arnaldo Tamayo Mendez becomes the first Latin American person to reach Earth's orbit. We're talking about the height of the Cold War, and this guy is literally among the stars, representing not just Cuba, but all of Latin America in the space age. And today, we've got people like Diana Trujillo, a Colombian engineer at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory. Her job? Control robotic arms on Mars. That's right, she's on Earth moving robot arms on another planet to collect Martian rocks. How cool is that? You know what strikes me about all these stories? These weren't people who had everything handed to them. Jorge Chávez was in flying machines that were basically death traps. Felix was fighting in a world war while dealing with discrimination. Olga was entering into a boys' club that didn't really want her there. Marisol was mastering million-dollar helicopters while being one of the only faces that looked like hers in the cockpit. But they didn't let that stop them. They looked at the sky and said, that's where I belong. And because they took those risks, because they refused to be told no, today's aviation industry is more diverse, more innovative, and more awesome than ever. So the next time you see a plane overhead or watch a rocket launch or even see a helicopter flying by, remember these Trailblazers. They didn't just break barriers, they exploded them. And who knows, maybe you're listening right now and thinking about your own dreams of flight. If so, remember Olga's motto, querer es poder. Where there's a will, there's a way. The skies are waiting for the next generation of pioneers. Maybe that's you. And there you have it. Another incredible journey through the future of flight. From Adriana's inspiring story of turning every weakness into a weapon, to the vibrant Hispanic aviation celebrations happening around the world, and the Trailblazers who quite literally opened up the skies for all of us. What strikes me most about today's stories is this simple truth. Aviation isn't just about the technology or the physics, though those are pretty amazing. It's about communities and individuals who look up at the sky and refuse to accept limits. Whether it's spending an hour to understand a single page of aviation text, or climbing into a fabric-winged aircraft across the Alps, or being the first Latina in the cockpit, these stories remind us that the sky truly isn't the limit when you have the courage to pursue your dreams. Before we taxi back to the hangar, I've got a huge favor to ask. If you've enjoyed today's show, please hit that subscribe button wherever you get your podcasts. And while you're there, take just a minute to leave us a review. It really helps other aviation enthusiasts discover the show. Your support helps us keep producing these incredible stories from the world of flight. I want to thank each and every one of you for joining us today. And once again, a huge thanks to our friends at Flight. Their support helps us celebrate the dreamers, the innovators, and the pioneers who are shaping the future of aviation. Until next time, keep your eyes on the horizon and your dreams in the sky. We'll see you out there and up there.